Hello and welcome to the mind map about ecosystem disruption. Take a snapshot now because we're zooming in. First of all, we're going to talk about fire. There are positives and negatives to fire. Let's look at the positives first. Nutrient recycling occurs through the Ashbed effect. Nutrients that were locked up are now released back into the soil. Serotinous plants are allowed to regenerate. These plants require heat and/or smoke to flower or grow. Fire also promotes new growth. It allows for branching or trunk regeneration in some species, like eucalypts. Fire also reduces the fuel load, preventing a larger fire later on. And fire also creates new habitats. It can speed up the production of hollows, etc., that normally take a very long time to occur. But as you know, there are negatives. There's the loss of life of the slow and the old and the stationary. So any plants and animals that can't escape, and most plants can't, will die. Also, intense fires sterilize the soil. This stops the nitrogen cycle and also nutrient recycling. The fine ash and soot in the air causes air pollution that can suffocate life. With all the plants that have died, nothing is there to hold the soil together, so the soil erodes, and when it's eroding, it then washes into waterways, increasing the turbidity of the water. Turbidity is the cloudiness of the water. It also causes habitat loss because many of the types of microhabitats are destroyed. It also allows for introduced species to quickly come in and dominate and to mop up all of the injured and dying and vulnerable native species. Next, we'll talk about succession. Succession is the renewal of life after the loss of vegetation. There are three types of succession. There's primary, secondary, and deflected succession. Primary succession is caused by a volcano where lava is laid down, and so there's only bare rock. There's no soil. Lichen breaks down the rock using its enzymes to make a very primitive soil. With this primitive soil accumulating in the cracks, moss is allowed to grow. But moss can only grow in moist conditions. When the lichen and the moss die, it adds humus to the soil. And when humus is added to the soil, microbes can start to live in the soil. Now, as the soil builds up, herbs and grasses are able to grow. And as the soil gets deeper, shrubs are able to grow, as their roots are able to grip in the soil. Then as the soil gets deeper, larger trees start to grow, and then we start to approach the climax community. And we know that a climax community is established when we have shade-tolerant plants. In secondary succession, we still have soil, and it's normally caused by a flood or a fire or a tsunami. As we said, soil still exists. Microbes were already in the soil or start to live in the soil again. And again, herbs and grasses, and then deeper soil allows for the roots of shrubs. Then larger trees start to inhabit as the soil gets deeper. And again, we get shade-tolerant plants as we enter the climax community. The third type is called deflected succession. The Aborigines that moved into Australia 65,000 years ago were known to do what's called fire stick farming, which is burning the bush in parts. The soil still exists, the microbes are still in the soil, but it allows for herbs and grasses to start to grow. It allows for the regeneration of shrubs and for the regeneration of bigger trees. But a climax community is never established because, once again, it would be burnt before it does. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the effects of human activity. And in Australia, it's about European settlement. So humans destroy the habitat. Mining requires habitat destruction because we have to knock down all the trees. Logging requires deforestation because logging is removing the trees from the landscape. Climate change is altering the rainfall and temperature patterns all around the world. We have air, water, and soil pollution, reducing biodiversity. We get eutrophication due to the runoff of fertilizers on farming land. We get biomagnification due to the release of heavy metals into the environment during mining. Humans like to take as much from the environment as possible, and overfishing decreases biodiversity not only of the species being caught, but also in the bycatch. Many of the farms of Europeans are monocultures, which means only one type of plant grows. And of course, this decreases biodiversity. Urbanization replaces the natural habitat with an artificial habitat. And all of these lead to human-induced extinction. Last of all, we're going to talk about introduced species, sometimes called invasive species. They are species introduced by humans for sport, farming, or lifestyle. And we're just going to go through a couple of examples. Foxes were introduced into Australia for sport, but the foxes soon learnt that there was lots of other food available for them. Rabbits were introduced for hunting, and now rabbits cause massive damage to the environment with their digging of burrows. Cats were introduced for lifestyle as companions to humans, and they indiscriminately kill wildlife on a massive scale. Cane toads were introduced to kill the cane beetle in the sugarcane fields, but they preferred to eat the native wildlife instead, and they couldn't reach the beetles they were brought here to kill. Crown of thorns starfish was brought to Australia in ballast water from Japan. It eats coral incredibly fast. In America, kudzu was introduced to stop soil erosion. Now it outcompetes native plants for sunlight because it climbs all over them. And another one from America is the zebra mussels. That again was introduced in ballast water. It grows rapidly and covers absolutely everything. So last of all, we're going to talk about why introduced species have been so successful. Well, they outcompete native animals for food and habitat. They don't have any natural predators, so their numbers explode. They bring with them the disease, and the endemic species are not immune to them. They breed rapidly and prolifically to consume even more resources. And also they change the habitat due to their lifestyle, and native species can't cope with the interference. Thank you for paying attention. I hope this helped you. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you later.